Hello and welcome to the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson. That's me. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. Thank you for all of the continued support. We certainly do appreciate it. On this Memorial Day, I would like to go ahead and take a moment to fill you in on the fact that there are men and women who have served this country and who have died in service to this country, veterans who have put that blank check that is signed at the day that we raise our right hand and swear to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that have cashed in that fatal check and in support of this country, given their lives. I saw the other day 250,000 flags put up in Arlington National Cemetery, and my goodness, what a huge cost, a toll that we have paid for the freedom in this country. These United States of America is a blessed nation, and I know that what happens in the United States has implications and impacts all around the globe. There are countries who model themselves in some way, shape, or form to the standards of the United States, and this experiment that we are so glad and so happy to live in. Now, some of us, there are those who cannot stand the United States, and they won't leave the United States. They live here, but they won't leave, and they still cannot stand what this country stands for and what this country was founded on. And to those people, I say, phooey to you, but also get your life right, because you don't realize how good you have it. In other countries, those same people would be tossed from rooftops. And that has happened. That it happens all the time in so many different countries around the world. You have Christians who are being lined up and slaughtered like cattle, and you have others that their homes are being burnt with them in it. And it's a stark contrast to us being able to gather on a street corner and just protest something that we don't agree with. And that's what happens. And in other countries, what freedoms we take for granted, it's a death sentence to speak against, and against their countries, against their government, and against others, against religions especially. You take some of the different POWs who from different aspects of society, and who have been just joined in these little free liberty, like the Peshmerga in the Middle East, and some of these other militias that they join, and they're freedom fighters, and they're just trying to earn freedom and trying to have some impact, and they're squashed. And this is what happens. This is the dark side of all of this. They're squashed because some socialist dictator or communist dictator has taken over and does not want to give up any of their power. And we have people who will gather on a street corner, dye their hair different colors so they stand out, gather on a street corner, and in some cases in the nude, and protest, whatever. Those same people would be lined up and under arrest, thrown in prison, and that is on the nice side of repercussions. Not to mention, a lot of them would be killed in other countries. I mean, in China, you speak out against the government, and the simplest thing is that you get a bad social credit score. On the other side of the spectrum, you might get killed by the government, and your family is charged for the bullet. And that's the truth. That's just what happens. But in these United States of America, we're able to stand on the corner, fuss whatever we want to fuss, holler whatever, block traffic, and just get real stank face mad, and we live in a country where that's okay. You're just exercising your First Amendment right. You're good. Express yourself, homie. And that ain't good enough for them. That ain't good enough. But here we are. I had served with men who had given the ultimate sacrifice and paid the ultimate price. And that's on this day, we remember them. And in this nation, one thing that I do love about our country is that there are still freedom-loving Americans who raise patriots in their family, and those same patriots go and join our military and serve prestigiously and go and do things. And in some cases, it's the people that you don't even expect that step up and push forward. And our American history is littered with incredible patriots who have done that. One, Desmond Doss, comes to mind, who was a conscientious objector and ended up going into the medical corps, and they made a movie about him, Hacksaw Ridge, and he was able to save all these lives and things, and gives all the glory to God. A little bitty guy did all that. Audie Murphy, also a conscientious objector, who joined the Army, or was conscripted into the Army, and ended up going into World War II, and ended up becoming one of the most deadly infantrymen this side of history, and saved his platoon several times, got field grade promoted, and ended up there was nobody tough enough to play him in his movies, so he had to play himself in his movies. Look him up, Audie Murphy. Incredible man. Became a Hollywood actor. It's amazing. Only in America. What did that dude, he represented Mike Tyson? Only in America, that guy. But anyways, you got others. I met this guy. Sammy Davis is his name. Not Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis. His Medal of Honor story is where they got the idea for Forrest Gump. And anyways, I met him, great guy. Met him a few times, actually, and did his personal security overseas when I was in the Army. And great guy, very humble, and drank Red Bulls, loved Red Bulls. I don't even know if he's still alive, but when I met him, when I knew him, he would be drinking Red Bulls and going around talking to soldiers and all that. And me and my old battle buddy got to spend a great amount of time with him and got several photos with him and everything, and just a humble guy, but a hero nonetheless. He was one of those guys that just would just light up the room and everything else, and it didn't realize how big of an impact it had, just him being around. But he was just always willing to come and see and spend time with the troops and everything. And Medal of Honor, just an amazing guy, really great guy. Benavidez, the guy who wouldn't die, a soldier who wouldn't die. World War II, several turns on to get guys to the medical bird, to get them medevaced out and everything, and put himself in harm's way. Those guys like that are guys that have paved the way for the freedom that we enjoy every single day. And it is incredibly inspiring to know that we have served in the same nation, served the same country, live in the same country with people who are warriors just like that. Now, those guys made it home. What about the ones who have not? What about the Sergeant King and Sergeant Israel and many others who have paid the ultimate price? Those who came home, but the war didn't leave them. They left the war, but the war didn't leave them. And the 22 veterans a day who, on average, end their own lives because the war hasn't left them. All those who died on the beaches in Normandy and Omaha, and those who died in the different islands in World War II, those who have died in Iraq and Afghanistan. and many other countries, Korea, Vietnam, and different other campaigns, Pearl Harbor. Today, I spoke at the Palmetto Patriots home in Gaffney, South Carolina, in a huge event, and I was the keynote speaker, and I'm incredibly honored to be able to say that. And I honestly, I didn't write out some kind of fancy speech that I would say or anything like that, and I had prayed about it, and I'd asked God, Lord, what do you want me to say, and would you just use me and all that, inspire me with whatever you want me to say. And I prayed, several occasions, and I get there today. It was incredibly awe-inspiring, just great people, and the staff there were super inviting and very kind, very courteous, very facilitating, hospitable. Wanted to feed you and give you some water or juice, whatever you wanted, and the residents there just super kind. There was one, Mr. George, who we went into his room after he was on the front row when I was speaking, and he got a joke that I said a little bit later and started laughing, and some folks were like, he's just showing out or something like that. I don't know. It didn't offend me one bit. And he said, I'm sorry for laughing out of turn. And I said, you didn't bother me one bit, brother. You didn't bother me one bit. And, just precious men and women that are there. They had a group that sang of the veterans, comprised of the veterans. And they sang, and man, it blessed my heart. The whole event blessed my heart. And it was just a stout, stark reminder that the war is not over for a veteran. And these men and women, when they get home, just like in my speech today, I talked about how the rotation back to society wasn't so easy. And even to this day, there are qualities and principles that a veteran has instilled in us that don't translate very well to civilian life. And there's very little compromise that we can make because it's instilled in us as principle, which means we stake our life on this, and this is how we structure our life. And I got to talk about that. I got to talk about how the structure and the planning in my life and the what I have to live for all changed in the fall of 2016 when I gave my life to Christ and sold out, just straight up sold out to Him. And here we are 10 years later, and the Lord is just 100% turned my life around. And it's way more than a 180 because it is in a direction I never thought possible. It's not like I turned my life around and went the right way. It's like I turned and then moved, flipped around and did something else. You put your left foot in, you take your left foot, all of this. And then next thing you know, I'm in a whole new area, and there is so much structure because God is at the forefront of my life. And I said all that to say this. If you are a veteran, or you know a veteran, and it seems like they just can't get their feet under them, they're constantly starting over and constantly fighting this battle, and constantly it seems like they're on the verge of losing it. My question is, where's Jesus in all this? Because if He's not in the veteran's life, if He's not in your life, if He's not in the veteran's life, though, then He needs to be. Because my life had zero direction without Christ. But with Christ, I have utter direction. And I know how I did it without Him. He had His hand on me. I know that's the only answer. That's the only way. Because without Him having His hand on my life, I'd be dead. I'd be gone. I also knew that there were candidates there running for office, and I challenged them too. Just because you in the running for some type of seat doesn't mean you're off the hook and whatever. You know, the best, you see them in their best light when it's in an election cycle. You don't see a politician, and I throw at all levels of politics into the same bucket because it's all the same bucket. It really is. Even sheriff and all that, it's all the same bucket. They can act like it's not, but it is. But you see them at their best during the election cycle, but you also see them at their worst. Because how a person acts under pressure tells you all you need to know about their character. And character is something that wait and sit and hide and watch, and you will see what it looks like. It will reveal itself. Character always reveals itself, sooner or later. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times when you act out of character. And acting out of character is not your character. It's kind of like a trend. You see a trend, the highs and the lows and all this other in this trend. And let's say there's this line that's called the mean line, the medial line. And that medial line is right smack dab in the middle. And then you oscillate along and against that medial line. I hope this makes sense for somebody. But as you oscillate your highs and your lows, and I'm talking your mental highs, physical highs, spiritual highs, financial highs, all those kinds of things, your mentality, it all oscillates on this up against this median line. And so this median line is that's where you meet at. Now, acting out of character, whether it's high or low, one or the other, that's a spike in any direction. That is not a trend. Okay? And the reason I'm saying all this is this. You notice that during an election cycle, let's just say this is our plane of existence here, and you see the person is oscillating. During an election cycle, they're up here. They're way ahead of the trend. They're kissing babies. They're shaking hands. They're hugging necks and all this other. They're doing the best they possibly can. And then the attacks start. And then once the attacks start, then you start seeing them, and they're maybe just below center, just under that median line, and they're acting, but then you start seeing them act out of character. And, they're just trying to upset the herd and try to offset what we'll call it the political enemy is doing, their opposition is doing, and all that. And I challenged them today with, remember why you are here, because you swore and you swear to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to execute the office to the best of your ability. And if you're going to do that, then do that. But if you're going to act out and you're going to let you're going to chase a dollar, you're going to chase influence, you're going to chase all this other stuff, you might as well just hang your hat up. And I mean that. Because politics in and of itself is a pure thing. I mean, what could be wrong with people talking some issues out? There's nothing wrong about that. It's the perversion of those politics that cause all the other issues. Once we start perverting the politics to meet our own personal goals or whatever those are, whatever the things are, then we start going down the wrong direction. And, I'm not saying anybody is above the law or anybody's below the law or whatever, but, especially when you've got other people's lives hanging in the balance of your decisions and what you are influencing, you best be doing the right thing. And so I challenged them today, and I hope they listened, and I hope they got what I was trying to say. Hopefully I didn't muddy the water too much, but I think if you get an opportunity for a platform and you have people in the room that need something that they need to hear something, and maybe there ain't nobody else brave enough to say it. I'll say it because it needs to be said, because I'm a constituent too, one way or the other. I'm a local resident, and my voice deserves to be heard just as much as anybody else's. And so, anyways, I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to go and maybe inspire somebody to look to Jesus and see what Jesus can do for them. And I know that right now there's a lot going on in the country. You got chemical spills going on, and you got terrorist attacks. You got people unhinged, and the left are still trying to assassinate people, and you got Iran trying to assassinate Ivanka Trump, and you got all this other stuff going on. And, you know, it ain't been that long since that psycho shot Charlie Kirk and all this other. There's just a whole lot going on. And let me tell you, none of this took God by surprise. Not one thing. All of this is way within the realm of his influence. And there's nothing that is going to make God not love you. So wherever you're at and whatever you're doing, if you made it this far back into the broadcast, I ask that you just talk to Jesus. Pray. That much the more. Even nowadays, we need to pray even more. Pray for Mercy Church. Our church is growing, and we're looking at this land. We're going today to go pray over this land, and I'm excited about that. That's one new chapter. There's a lot of stuff going on in my life and professionally and especially spiritually. And I would love your prayers too, and pray for my wife because she's navigating this with me. Today, I said, thanks for going to this veterans home with me, this event with me. And she said, we teammates, baby. We teammates. And I can't thank God enough for her. But anyways, I love you. God loves you. This has been the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson.